So in Australia at the moment, women drop out of tech at double the rate of men. So they just leave. They come and they leave at twice the rate. There's a whole group of people that don't know how to speak about what their skills are in a way that's heard. Hate it? No, I love it. Because who wants to do the boring stuff? And I think if organizations build out some really thoughtful agents, it will speed us up.
Welcome, listeners, to the podcast show Marketing for Tech. Thanks for tuning in today. And to make sure you don't lose this video, please subscribe to my channel. To provide some background about myself, I'm Olga, and I'm a founder of B-Game, the expert in branding, management, and marketing solutions for tech. And today I have a really special guest for me, and her name is Gretchen Scott, and she's a CEO of Kaleida. That amazing platform. We will talk about this later on, but let me just introduce Gretchen. It is an organization that builds diverse and high-performing technical teams that represent the Kaleida-scope of society. I love the name, Gretchen.
Who doesn't love a pun?
I know. Well, Gretchen started out studying optimization modeling, which she used to run one of the Southern Hemisphere's largest trade show. Impressive. Mm-hmm. And Gretchen's passion is bringing more diversity to technology. She has been involved in training more than 250 bootcamp graduates and is currently director at, used to be Women Who Code, now it's Women Coders. Mm-hmm. And also sitting on the committee of the Churchill Club. And there's something that is not in her bio, but I just want to add. Gretchen is fantastic moderator and facilitator of different panels. I saw her in action. She's absolutely amazing. She has this bubbly personality that involves everyone and provide really good insight, and trying to actually go into the topic even deeper, that the attendees will get so much insight out of it. So Gretchen, thank you so much for taking some time out and joining me on my podcast show. Podcast. This is better. Thank you and welcome. So I just want to start with your career journey, because we already had a quick conversation before. And I know that your Kaleida, your organization, is quite young. So it's not like 20 years old you've been involved in that particular organization. So tell us, how have you become this, who you are right now? So you're actually, is it HR tech, right?
It's HR technology. But firstly, thank you for having me. And what a beautiful introduction.
That's all right. Tell us more. How you started?
How I started Kaleida. So I've got the most varied and wobbly, squiggly career pathway of any person I've met. I actually started off doing catering at high-end organizations. So this was in New Zealand. We used to run all the luxury brands events and do six-figure wedding receptions. So wildly different to what I do now. But I studied maths at university, which led me to love kind of some coding, optimizing things, making things better. And then I ran New Zealand's largest agricultural trade show, or actually Southern Hemisphere's largest agricultural trade show, which was so much fun. I think it's the best job I've ever actually had. We got to ride tractors one day, horses another, motorbikes another, and sometimes we wore heels and dresses to go and hang out with government officials. It was fabulous.
Really interesting.
Yeah, but every job I've had, and I've had some weird jobs, you learn something new and it all ties into the next thing that you do. The short version is I ended up in Melbourne, Australia, teaching at a web development bootcamp. So we took people who wanted to change their careers and move into technology roles, and they did a diploma of IT in 6 months, which is crazy intensive, right? Like, it is insane. And what I realized through doing this is the people in the room were very homogenous. And given that technology designs the infrastructure of the world we live in at the moment, I mean, we have the physical of the roads and traffic lights and buildings, but technology is intertwined in every single part of our being. And I started thinking, if the people building this are such a small representation of the people consuming us, then things are going to get a bit wonky in the future. Like they're not bad people. I'm not saying that they're bad, but they've had one existence and one kind of pathway through life. And it means they're blinded to other things that different people experience. And that led me to get really passionate about having more diverse people learning technology and being involved in building the systems and structures that determine how we live our day-to-day lives. And so I started bringing more and more underrepresented people into our boot camps. Then I had this moment, and I think every woman in technology will say they've had this moment where they went, actually, I didn't have it. Someone helped me have it. They said, you're not technical enough, meaning my code was not good enough. Like I was okay at talking to people, I could do some thinking, but really, did I belong here? Because I wasn't technical enough. And I'm yet to meet a woman in tech who hasn't been asked if they're technical enough. So instead of actually doing sensible things and going, you're a bit of an idiot, I'll right size that comment, I went, let me go prove how technical I am. So I joined a startup and we built a very geeky platform, and we got bought out by Cloudflare, which was cool. That was a really cool journey of building a super technical product and then going through that process of a merger and acquisition. And at the end of that, I went, what now? Because we had to go for 6 months to Cloudflare and be employed and do the things. And I was catching up with some of my ex-students who are now, 4 or 5 years into their tech career. And of the women and underrepresented people, there was a strong theme of them saying, I'm going to leave now. I don't belong here. I don't like it here. I'm not thriving. It's really hard. I feel like I'm dragging my feet through mud every day. And I knew these people were talented, like very good at what they did. And so, there was a selfish part. I'd worked so hard for them to be here and I wanted them to be in technology doing the next piece. But it was really heartbreaking to hear that they'd had enough. They were ready to leave. And so I started researching that and what was happening. And people leave the tech industry for really inane, dull reasons that we can fix. And they are, lack of flexibility was one, but COVID kind of helped that. As funny as that may seem, it's like the one solution it gave us.
It opened the different doors. So I think COVID actually made organizations think that there are different options. You can run business even working from home. I think it's helped in terms of thinking outside of the box, I would say.
I agree. Getting rid of those boundaries and structures that were there just because. And so that's really opened the door for underrepresented folks to come back into the industry or belong. But the other 3 reasons are very closely intertwined. It's unequal pay. So in Australia at the moment, women drop out of tech at double the rate of men. So they just leave. They come and they leave at twice the rate. But when they finish their university degree, they start on average on 18% less pay than their male colleagues. And yes, it's illegal to pay people differently and all of those things, but actually in practice, 18% less on day 0 is what they get. So unequal pay is one of the reasons they leave. One of the other reasons is lack of career progression. So they're promoted 2 to 3 years slower than men on average. And the one that really grates with me, because it's kind of nebulous, is perceived incompetence. So that shows up in terms of, and I've had this myself, I will go into a meeting or an event or something, and you have to kind of list off all your qualifications, all the big companies you've worked at, all the decent job titles you've had, just in order to say, you know what, that button could be blue. Like you have to really qualify your opinion before you're even allowed an opinion. And it's kind of death by 1,000 cuts. So it's exhausting. So after all this research, I did the only obvious thing and started a company, as you do. Because we knew, and this is myself, Susan and Michelle, who have all been in the industry for a very long time. We caught up and we said, but we don't have this in the places we work. So what is different between where we are and other companies with technical teams? And we recognize that we've always put in place career growth frameworks, very specific for technology workers. So it's not just saying, if you're kind of in the middle of your career, you can have a conversation with someone. There are no vagaries in it. They're very hyper-specific frameworks for technology roles. And it turns out that when, let's say I'm an employee, I know what is expected of me, which skills and how I can demonstrate them at every stage of my career or that career pathway, then I can start reaching towards them. And it also means that my manager can assess me clearly against data points instead of gut feel. And when those rules of engagement, when everyone knows what is expected at what level, it turns out that underrepresented folks in the industry actually are pretty competent. And they tend to get promoted and advanced, not at the same rate, but very similar rates. And it's really good for people who are in that kind of homogenous majority group, because it gives them clarity over what's expected as well. It stops them feeling like they have to play a political game. So it's kind of like, if you design these things like this HR technology for those margins or those edge cases, it takes everyone in the middle along with you as well. And what we've seen is that these frameworks drive engagement from engineering teams, and it drives their performance. And actually, it's just better and easier. And I'm here for easy.
We know how tech engineers, sometimes their work, they're a little bit more quiet. They're focusing on different tasks. And I think the mindset is slightly different. Do you think it's a problem, or like not a problem, the issue that they just less vocal?
Yeah.
Do you think it can be one of the issues?
I think I've been in technology a while, and some of those people don't stop talking. I'll just put that out there. There's a lot of conversations and a lot of dialogue. But I would agree that there are personality types and traits in the industry. And I think regardless of those traits, there's a whole group of people that don't know how to speak about what their skills are in a way that's heard. And tech is no different to anyone else, any other industry, in that you tend to get promoted based on whether you're good at being an individual contributor. So if you write really great code, you might get promoted to being a manager and looking after people. But odds are you don't get any people training for between 8 and 12 years of your career. So you might write great code, but you don't know how to manage people. They're two completely different skill sets and jobs. And so when you have frameworks in place that really articulate, they're very specific around what skills are required, it also helps managers understand what conversations they should be having around skills and careers and pathways. And it stops them being anxious about making a misstep, because you don't want to be that manager that says something to someone on your team. Like, you have good intentions, but you know what? Maybe Steve is a bit annoying. And so you say, hey, Steve, you don't get promoted because you're annoying. That's not helpful for Steve. And then you get in trouble, when really what you wanted to say is, Steve, there's some opportunity here for us to work around your communication skills, because at the moment you talk over everyone all the time, or you don't listen first. And so a framework can actually put in place little data points, so you can go, oh, here's a skill I need to talk about. That is the skill we need for you to advance with. And it puts kind of safety guardrails in place for not just individual contributors, but managers as well, to be better managers.
I absolutely agree. And you know what? You mentioned that it's a different skill set, obviously, being a manager and being a fantastic tech or engineer, the IT person. And another thing that I was on a podcast a few months ago, and that's what we discussed, that tech people now, this time, tech people need to know how to present whatever they do, because sometimes they have an idea, they built something, but they need to justify it to the executive team, and vice versa. So all the managers, they still need to have this basic tech skills, because now it's essential. Like, you can't go anywhere without knowing what's going on in tech. And especially even if you manage it, like, oh, I can delegate tasks, like, I don't really need to know that tech. Hang on a minute. But if someone's sick, or you need to train someone new that came on board, or you, for example, you just want to make sure that your team is not using wrong tools, or the tools they're not supposed to use at work, I think you should be aware of how everything works.
So there's a couple of streams of what you said there. One is communication skills, and I think communicating is hard.
Absolutely, yep.
It's challenging. And I can talk to one audience and be heard perfectly. My message lands beautifully. They took away what my intention was. It's happy days. And I can talk to another audience with the same message and it just doesn't land. And I've just misjudged it. And I think for technologists, often you're shifting between different personality types and different understanding of really complex situations or structures. And it can be really difficult to right size how deep you go into the information you're sharing. I was actually at a specialist appointment earlier this week with my son, and the surgeon was beautiful. And that at the start, he did this kind of level setting piece. He was like, "What do you do? Are there medical people in your family? How much do you understand around?" Or actually, he was asking, "Do I speak Latin?" I think.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying? How much which language do I use so you can hear what I am saying here? And it was a really beautiful, gave me time to reflect and go, I don't often do that enough. If I've been spending a lot of time with really technical people and we've been talking about architecture and how we're building things and what's next, and I happen to turn around and the next person I speak to is a business manager, I can almost guarantee, unless I do some kind of centering piece, I will start talking to them in words that make no sense. So I think, and likewise, I think people that aren't in tech, this ties to your next point, they will speak in words that make no sense to technologists. And we have completely different definitions of the same word. So I agree that everyone now in the entire world needs some base level understanding of technology. I don't think we all need to write code, but I would, and this is kind of like a controversial spot I will land on, and I'll fight with someone over this quite happily. I think that if you're a CTO or a CIO, you're heading into executive level technology roles. You need to have a deep understanding of tech. Not all tech, because you can't. That's like saying a doctor must understand every single specialty in medicine. But you need to have an understanding of tech. I think in some organizations at the moment, we're seeing people in those very senior roles, and probably they've never written a line of code. And I'm not saying that's the best metric of whether you understand tech or not. But they're so far removed from it that they're wholly dependent on the people reporting to them, telling them the right thing in the right way. And I think that's risky for organizations.
It is absolutely risky. And I agree with what you just said, communications and basic knowledge as well. I'm going to talk about my industry. You can't be a marketing manager or a marketing CMO and not knowing how simple paid ads works, for example, or the social media platform works. Like, you don't have to go deep into details, how to set up campaign and so. Maybe you don't have to do that. Sometimes they have crazy ideas, but the executors, they're actually the team sitting under the manager saying like, Jesus, what did you just say? It's impossible to implement with the amount of budgets we have, with the resources, human resources we have. It's just crazy. We will be working 24/7.
And you lose respect for people that do that, don't you?
Yes. And they're like, oh, no. It's a great idea. It's a big idea. We need to do that. I was like, well, if you don't know how to execute things, or at least how it works, oh my God, maybe in theory, you don't have to know everything. But if you don't know how it works, like, your idea is just impossible to implement. That's it.
Oh, I agree. It is hard with technology too, though, because things are moving so fast. There's whole topics I thought I knew. I was at a conference last week and I was like, oh, I know nothing again. And there's a bit of research out that said half-life of your skills, typically in the workplace, used to be like 8 or 9 years. And now for technology, it's down to 5 years, which means every 2.5 years, whatever knowledge you thought you had or whatever knowledge you have is expired. Like, you need more every 2.5 years. That's quite exhausting. I think organizations need to start factoring in time for their people to learn and upgrade their skills and keep up to date on skills.
2 or 3 years ago, we didn't have these Gen AI tools, ChatGPT, and now all of a sudden everybody started using it. And managers, they probably don't know whether the team using it or not, and how dangerous it can be. So they have to stay across, to be across of everything happening in a team.
Yeah.
And that's probably leading to my next question is, whatever you do and know in terms of technology, how does it affect your personal life?
Hugely. And I'm laughing because I'm the most dysfunctional tech person I know. So I have
I can't believe that, Gretchen. I can't believe that.
I kind of have gone anti-tech. So like my laptop's a Mac, but my phone's a Samsung, so nothing quite connects beautifully. I don't have any Google Home or anything in my house because I just don't like what they do and the data collection pieces. I'm almost the most anti-tech person you know, which is fabulous and funny. So I have friends will ask me, "Oh, can you help me fix this?" I'm like, absolutely not, because I don't know how it works and I don't have one and I don't want one, and you shouldn't have one either. And they're like, oh. It does also mean I've been pretty uptight. I've got 2 children. They're a bit older now, but I was always very uptight about when they got to have devices, what they could access on their device, and in terms of social media, but also gaming and chats and where that landed. And it's interesting because now, so this is 10 years ago, I've been, ranting to my friends about why they shouldn't do these things with their kids, or why I don't, is where I would start the language from. And now with the government looking at putting restrictions in on social media for young people, they're like, oh my gosh, did you know how dangerous this is? And I'm like, darlings, we've been talking about this for 10 years and you didn't hear me.
Exactly. So it's pretty much affects what do you do. And honestly, even I'm not a tech person, but I work with tech companies. So it actually affects me. And I think I call myself a paranoid. I'm a cyber paranoid, for example. I'm not a cyber person, but I know enough to be a paranoid.
Perfect. We all should be a bit paranoid.
I know, but the thing is, Gretchen, is like the people who are not involved in tech, they don't really know. They work in a different industries. They actually don't pay attention to these things because they're more focused on whatever they know. And it's probably that any doctor will tell you, like, oh, you can't do that. You can't take these supplements with these supplements. You can't take this medication with this one. It's like, we're like, well, I'm still alive, so I think it's worked good for me.
But it's exactly the same. Until you're impacted, you go, it's fine. And I think also, technology is complicated and I've got conflicting thoughts. I think on one level, technologists have been appalling in terms of explaining what it is we do. I think technology of itself, we have not been a great industry at sharing what is going on. We've kind of been protective and said, you know what, if you don't understand tech, that's because you're a bit stupid and we're a bit special. Whereas if I compare that to my accountant, he knows all the details and how things work. But what I actually pay him for is to tell me what to do in really simple language that I can understand and comprehend. And I don't think technology has done that. And really, a lot of technology is kind of bubblegum and sticky tape holding it together. It's not. When I came into the industry, I believed it was built of these beautiful Lego pieces that sat together perfectly and built up these structures. And the reality is what we're doing is getting, little bits of Duplo, maybe some Lego, maybe some off-brand Lego, maybe just some bubble gum, and we're mushing it together, and there are gaps. Like, we are doing that in really considered, thoughtful ways, but there are gaps. Technology is not as structured and following recipes and patterns as people believe it is. And it can't, because we're solving complex problems with it. But it is not as sparkly and shiny as we lead the world to believe.
Yes, and I think for some tech people, it's really hard to explain in simple terms what they do. So even if they need some help, UX, UI, for example, and they're not behind the code, but they know how the behaviors are working and how it's supposed to look like and it feels like as well, when you're using the tool. They don't really know how to maybe communicate it. And it's going back to the communications too. And it was just like, my tech is great. What are you talking about? It's like, well, it's probably the code is great. However, I can't really use it because I don't understand what are you trying to say here.
Yeah.
I don't speak your language. I think this is another a challenge in the tech industry.
Oh, I agree. I was speaking to my mother is a brilliant woman. She is incredibly smart. And she was teaching, one of the things she does is teach at a university. And she was trying to use their LMS system. And she ended up ringing and saying, can you help me figure this out? Like I can't do technology.
Mm-hmm.
Technology is not for me. I'm not smart enough to do this. And I jumped on a video call with her and we were screen sharing. And I was like, Mum, this is not you. How this was built is absolutely appalling. And it's even worse that you've come out of it feeling like tech is not for you and you're stupid. This is on them. This is a them problem, not a you one. And that happens a lot.
I come across lots of tools. I know you're a great tool, but I don't want to use it every time when I try to do something with it. And, you know, I just want to quickly ask you about your team, because I know that you work with someone's teams, you know, with the different businesses team. But what about your approach working with your team, even as a co-founders, whether someone that works and as an executor executing different tasks for you? How do you work with them? What's your approach?
I think I'm one of the luckiest people around. We have a beautiful team. So we're all overachievers and perfectionists. So really our biggest challenge is making sure we all stop and don't get burnt out and go well. So we have a few practices in place. We're remote first. So we use Slack a lot and do a lot of communication around these are my priorities for this week. So on a Monday, everyone puts in their week's priorities and then we figure out who needs help, who needs assistance, where you're going to be blocked. But we communicate a lot around this is what I'm working on today at the start of the day and then ending it at the end of the day to say what was achieved and what wasn't, with a no blame, no fault, just really open, easy communication about what we're doing, where we're trying to go and why. I love also that we are so flexible. So the whole ethos within the team is around do the work you've scheduled to do. If you've finished it, be free. So we implement, we do a 9-day fortnight. We were trying to do 4-day weeks, but we realized at the stage of our company, we need to be available more days than that in the work calendar. We have a huge recognition that we're in the knowledge business, right? We need time to think. And so we've really put value around thinking, which is great. Because we're a small team and a small startup, we do a lot of we have a lot of contractors work with us, which is an interesting piece because then you're bringing, like they are a part of your team so deeply at times, and then they're not. So there's a lot of work around, I say it is work, a lot of enjoyable work around having other people come in and understand what you're doing and seeing their eyes light up and hearing their thoughts and what they would do in this situation, which I really love. But we're looking forward to next year. We're actually growing our team quite significantly. So hopefully if we catch up again in 12 months, our team will be almost 3 times the size it is now. That's the plan.
Fantastic. So you already started working towards this goal. That's a new goal, right? To grow.
That's the next stage. Yes.
That's so good to hear, Gretchen. But I won't say congratulations yet because it may be a little bit too early, but we'll definitely have a chat later on. And you'll tell me how you're going with growing your team. But that's fantastic. Bigger team, it's bigger aperture for you to explore different, maybe to open different doors. But at the same time, it's actually a massive responsibility too.
Yes, so much that. It's a little bit terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it can be exciting and terrifying. You know, there's like 2 feelings in one.
Most of the worthwhile things do, you know, the things you should be doing or the things that move you forward do have both that element of excitement and absolute terror.
Yes, yeah. You know what? Because we were talking about communications before, and it's leading to my favorite part, actually. It's marketing, because I know you do a incredible job in terms of building your own personal brand. And as I already mentioned in the beginning, that's your fantastic moderator. It's like, seriously, you are fantastic. Like, you can have any conversations about any tech. I believe it's out there. I believe that you still prepare, some stuff. You just do your homework. However, being on the stage and trying to lead conversation and then probably tweak it a little bit, because you can't plan the whole entire conversation, obviously.
No.
But with your personal brand and with your public speaking, how does it affect the business in terms of, does it help with your marketing?
100%. Like, absolutely. Hands down. It's interesting because every time we get a new sale or a new customer, we go through that process of what touch points they remember having or where and every single time something will come back to a conference or a public speaking event. Usually technical conferences or developer conferences, but every single sale, they have seen either myself or Susan on a stage talking about technology or being around technology in a visible way. But I will do a little giggle, and that personal brand building was never, it wasn't a strategic process.
Never planned. It just happened, right?
Just happened. And it actually started happening because when I was teaching at boot camps, one of the best ways to get jobs in technology is to build your network. So I used to take students to the local meetups. And then I was also encouraging them to be a bit more visible and do public speaking. And one of them very rightly said, "Yeah, but you don't." So, fair call. Best I speak. So that's how it began. But I would say I do love moderating and emceeing talks because I get so excited about being given the space to explore a new topic that's typically not mine. Like, we had the best event around space technology, right? That was one of my favorites.
Loved it.
The Churchill Club. I know nothing about space technology. And actually, when it was first brought up as a topic, I went, "Oh, really? Okay." And then I came away going, "Oh, this is so exciting." And you're right, though. You can't, all I did was a short bit of research and met the people on the panel. And then you just have fun. There are so many interesting, smart people around doing amazing work that it's just great to learn from them. But to answer your question, public speaking and being visible in the industry is priceless.
Priceless, yeah. And sometimes it's actually main engine for your company as well. And it's always good to actually connect any B2B, business to business, starts with B2C, because you connect with the person first. One or two, like co-founders or one person, decision maker. It always starts with B2C. And if you don't know who's behind this company, I think it's really, really hard for the potential client to have this trust, like whether I really want to work with them or that company sounds similar, but I know the CEO of the company and we already had a coffee a couple of weeks in. He seems like a really, really decent person.
I'm the same. I buy off people that I'm going to say like, but when I say like, I mean I buy off people when I feel like we can work well together easily. Simple.
Because it's not just the work you're going to do. For example, you're going to work with the team, but it's really important to have this good relationship with, the decision maker, someone who's going to, again, pay your invoice. As simple as that.
I'm also a big fan of saying work can be fun as well. It doesn't have to be this yes, it has to be serious. Things have to be structured. There has to be process. But we're allowed to enjoy it. We're allowed to have a couple of laughs and, give them grief if they pay our invoice a day late. We're allowed to have fun with the people. And the more you enjoy being with someone, the easier it is to carry on doing business.
Can you maybe remember one situation of the working with someone, don't name again, the one situation that you didn't really enjoyed working with the company, and the one situation that you absolutely loved working with this company? Can you recall something like that? Was it in your experience?
Of course, I'm going to go back to my catering days. So we used to do 6-figure wedding receptions, right? And this is, I'm aging myself, 20 years ago. So you think about a $200,000 wedding 20 years ago. That is a lot of money.
God.
And I'm just talking about the reception. Yeah. I'm not talking about the dress and the back, like just the reception.
Just the reception, yes.
And so this one weekend, we had this phenomenal wedding on. It was, out of one of the major cities near a lake, huge marquee. These people were so wealthy. They just played on it. It was a different sport to what I was playing. And that was fabulous. Meanwhile, we had another wedding that was about $70,000, which is just for the reception, mind you. So still an obscene amount of money for a party, really, in my mind. And these people were wealthy, but they were also horrible. They were so horrible. All they did the entire time, because they knew this other wedding was on, was compare themselves to that wedding and then complain about everything that was different. And there was no win to be had. They were never going to be happy with what they bought because they were buying something they didn't want. It was a really interesting learning. What came from that is I stopped doing weddings. No, I didn't. That's it was a recognition around when people, so the people with less money and the smaller, still hugely priced wedding were reaching for something they couldn't get to without acknowledging they could have just done it a level. They could have been happy with where they were. Whereas the other people, I mean, their 200,000 wedding was like me spending 5,000 on mine, right? We're talking about that kind of level of wealth. And they were super happy and nothing mattered. And it made me realize in sales later on, if you're selling something to someone and it's not really what they want, it doesn't matter how well you do it. It's never going to be enough. There's always going to be complaints. So you need to make sure you're solving the right problem for the right people in sales is what I took from that. And conversely, to answer the other flip side of your question, one of our current customers at Kaleida, I love this company. They just really, really deeply care about their staff. So they're a tech company, probably 80% of their workforce are software engineers or product managers, and they really care. So they use the Kaleida product, and literally their head of HR and their CEO, when I connect with them, they'll just say, are our people okay? Is there anything we need to know to make our people's life better? How are they going? Like, can you give us any insights other than what we haven't got? They just really want their people to be happy, moving forward, developing skills and being the best version of their work self they can be. And it's working with someone who just wants what it is you're selling and you're fixing the problem for them is so much easier, and the outcomes are beautiful and energizing. So I think that's my answer to your question. Make sure you're solving the actual problem people want solved.
Exactly. And it's really satisfying. Like you're able to showcase your expertise and help people at the same time. It sort of like plays this like a little bit of ego, maybe, up a little bit like, oh yes, I know I'm great. At the same time, you're sort of like, oh, I'm so glad I could actually help you and your business.
Exactly that. It's so good to make, we started this company, and you don't start a startup unless you're a little bit crazy, but you really want to solve a problem that you're deeply passionate about. And so the endorphins you get when someone says, hey, you're doing good and you're solving the problem you wanted to solve is so rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Gretchen, I think we'll just go to that part of our episode. We talk about some different news. So I came across that article about 2025 enterprise technology trends.
Ooh.
And I will quickly read you what it's about. So in an article, they talk about present 6 key enterprise technology predictions for 2025. And I know you haven't heard that news yet, but you haven't read this article. I think that
I haven't read it at all. I would say, before you even get started, I feel like for 2025, there should be 5 predictions, not 6.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, we'll do the 6 prediction in 2026. Thank you. So the prediction number 1, it's usage-based pricing. Okay. So software companies will charge based on how much you use the product, not just flat fees. What do you think about that?
I agree, depending on what it is, right? Spotify is not going to start charging us based on how many songs we listen to. I don't think.
No.
That wouldn't fly.
I know. It would be crazy. I would be paying crazy bills then.
I know. You'd be like, oh, I can't listen to that one. Like, you really would change your playlist fast, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, I love your approach. It depends on what tool you use, right?
But in the workplace, I 100% agree. As I think budgets have been tightened, macroeconomics, it's a tough space at the moment. People are looking at line items in the budget and going, what am I paying for and why? And I think if you're a software provider, the flat fee is not going to land anymore. Some organizations don't want to pay $20 per person per month when they only use it once a month. Like, that made sense 5 years ago. It doesn't make sense now. So I agree. Depending on the product and who you're selling to, that's going to have to change.
Yeah. I agree with you. I actually on that one too. And I think it's one of the main predictions. And I believe that lots of companies start implementing on how do you use it. That's what it is. Okay, prediction number 2, selective AI use. Our favorite topic, AI. Companies will be picky about which AI tools they use, focusing on those that give the best return on investment. What do you think about that?
I think it needs to happen. I don't think we know how to make it happen. What is a return on investment for AI? Is anyone actually tracking how much they spend, what the cost on power usage is, and what the outcomes are? I don't think we're tracking that in a meaningful way yet. I think we do need to assess it and change what we're doing. I think there's a whole heap of, AI, let's do AI without any actual outcomes we're looking for. So I agree something will happen. I don't think we have the structures in place to do it really easily yet.
Yes, and because when the ChatGPT, when they launched ChatGPT, lots of businesses, and I sort of really, lots of people never been on LinkedIn, all of a sudden become a thought leaders and influencers and content creators. And I literally, like every second or third post I read about, like, I can do it myself. Now I don't need marketing. Now I don't need lawyers. Now I don't need accountants or someone else. Like, I literally need just, someone once a year. But now ChatGPT can do that for me, which is now we hear about different regulations, possible regulations coming, and will be whatever you do, because AI can hallucinate, it can provide you with false information. And then, like, what are you going to do with that? Because there's going to be your responsibility that you put it out there, whether it's a contract, whether it's something else.
Yeah, sorry. ChatGPT and language models, gosh, they did good marketing because we almost believe that they think. They do not think. They are statistical models that say, given those words, the next most likely word is this. They do not think. That is all.
But not everyone knows that. So, and the people who jumped on the boat with AI, so like, I am free now. There's if the marketing won't cost me anything now. It's just like, wrong.
Read LinkedIn, you can tell in half a second which came from ChatGPT, which came from Claude. They have a flavor and a theme, and it's don't get me wrong, we use generative AI all the time internally. It's not in our external product, but we use it to get started. It's never the final piece of what we do. That would be terrifying.
Exactly. Absolutely agree. Okay, there's a prediction number 3. IT services consolidation. Business will reduce the number of IT service providers they use, preferring to work with fewer larger companies.
Get that. Aren't you sick of logging in? Like, how many things do you have to log into? How many platforms and how many places doing how much? I think they'll reduce how many platforms employees are logging into. And then it will be cyclical and they'll go, but these big organizations don't do the things we need them to do. And then they'll start buying the other things again.
Yeah, I agree. It is actually, sometimes it's really annoying, the amount of tools you use. And I try to, revise all the tools I use. It's like, I don't need that. I use it a couple of times. Well, I don't need it. So I will survive. Exactly. Okay, the prediction number 4, it is a cloud infrastructure growth. Big cloud providers like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google will build more data centers to support AI needs. I think they already started.
I think it's already started. I'm interested in their greenwashing around this. Data centers take a lot of power, take a lot of water. I'm intrigued to see what the media does with this happening.
Media are going to be fully involved in that. Definitely. Maybe not as much as the companies, but the media around that.
I think they need it. The way we've built our technology, we need more data centers. But at the same time, I don't think it's great for us and the environment. I don't have a solution. I'm just here with problems.
Yeah, I'll just tell you. I don't have a solution. Right.
Well, that's what we're doing, actually. We're, thinking and just discussing what can be done. They don't have to listen to us, but they should. Yeah.
Okay, the prediction number 5, we're almost there. So AI in the workforce, and I think this is really sort of your topic too. AI agents will become common in the workplaces, effectively doubling the workforce and boosting productivity.
I love this and I hate it. No, I love it. Because who wants to do the boring stuff? And I think if organizations build out some really thoughtful agents, it will speed us up. It will get rid of some of the inane stuff we don't want to do. And I love that. Where I have concerns is I've heard technology leaders, for example, go, some of the Microsoft tooling around writing code has said it will increase developer productivity by 40%. And then what I've heard is executives go, great, we can get rid of 40% of our developers. Is that, no, that is not how the math goes. Particularly in software engineering, a developer probably spends 10% of their day writing code. The rest of it is thinking, problem solving, designing, architecting what it looks like. So I think if people take those not achievable outcomes of productivity and then apply a blanket and get rid of workforces, it will be quite destructive. But I think if we build AI agents really thoughtfully and considered, then gosh, workplace is going to be more fun. We can get rid of the inane and start doing the stuff that inspires us and is exciting.
Yeah, yes. So we'll just try to automate the manual tasks that's not thinking involved in that, and then focus on the strategy and growth rather than on
exactly like a calculator. It can speed us up, but it doesn't get rid of us.
Exactly. It will help, and it'll probably just pivot to a different direction and open more doors for the companies. And the prediction number 6, advanced AI strategies. Companies will move beyond basic AI tools to more sophisticated, custom-built AI solutions for specific roles and tasks. I think it's slightly similar to what we just discussed.
I agree. And I think the companies that don't do this will find themselves in a bit of, like, they'll just be left behind a bit. There is a challenge in around knowing what it is to build. Like, what is it we need to build? What is it that would help us? What is the best strategy? I don't know if a lot of organizations have that set up yet. And also Australia-wise, I'm not sure we have the people with the skills to build what we're looking for, which is a bit concerning. Is that a global report you're coming from?
Yes. It's more like looking into different countries and industries. So it's just like a generic, it's not a specific country, but I think we may be a little bit behind, but, we like outsourcing. I can't say it's good or bad because I don't really know. I'm not a, tech person, but, you can outsource anything.
100%. And controversial opinion, I think some of our aversion to outsourcing is just old school racism, if I'm fair. There are phenomenal technologists all around the world.
Exactly.
I don't think outsourcing is a bad thing. I think we're not great at managing international teams.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much, Gretchen, for these predictions. And I think I love your approach and the way of thinking. When I was reading it myself, I was thinking a little bit differently. And then you said, oh, that's right. It actually makes so much sense.
Oh, no, I don't usually make it make sense. Usually I confuse things.
You stop it. You just like talk in a different language and it makes sense because you put it in the simple terms.
Oh, that's a compliment. Thank you.
Well, and before we actually say goodbye to each other, I want to ask a last question. And it's more like maybe not a question, inquiry. Possibly an inquiry. For anyone who is actually working on trying to probably manage the teams better or looking into reskill or upskill the teams, what's going to be your advice? How they need to get started with this?
That is a great inquiry. I love it. I think one of the biggest things, and I'm speaking just about technology roles, it probably applies to others, but my area of knowledge is around technology roles. I think along our career pathways or managing people or running teams, you lose track of not only your own skills, but the skills of the people in your team. And so I'm a huge fan of empowering individuals to assess their skills, understand where they land in the current environment they're in, because what that then lets you do is see where the gaps are. So you can't plan on upskilling or reskilling or the next step if you don't know where you are now. So I would say a skills assessment reflection piece is number one, what I would do running teams. And then you can decide which skills you do want to put time, money, and other resources towards developing. So start off getting some data points, really. That's quite boring sounding, isn't it?
It's not boring. I think it's essential. And sometimes people don't even think about it, that way. And that's why I was sort of saying, like, inquiry, just tell them, Gretchen, where they need to start.
Yes, start by doing that. And also recognize that it takes time. I know if it's me and I'm reflecting on where my skills are at and what I'm doing, I want that to be a 5-second job that I just scribble down, but really to do it properly will be an hour and a half of thinking. You actually have to stop and think. And it's valuable work to be done because it sets you up for the next piece.
Absolutely. I think this is going to be our a final sentence because that's really inspiring. Well, thank you so much, Gretchen, for joining me and provide your insight. And we'll talk about a little bit your journey, and it's incredible. So I didn't actually know that you started with this, fancy weddings, and then all of a sudden you're in a tech. Well,
it makes no sense, but it was fun.
Yeah, I know. But at the same time, it's really, really good. And you never know what are you going to do in 5-10 years, even if you started your career here in tech, marketing, HR, whatever, but maybe you will end up being in an absolutely different industry and doing really cool stuff. Who knows? That's really inspiring. Thank you so much, Gretchen, and thank you for everyone who watched this episode. And you stay creative and adaptive and empower your brand. Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, cut. Thank you so much, Gretchen. It was so good. I loved it. And it was a little bit over time, even I promise it's not going to take longer than that.
Yeah, but you've met me. I always go over time.
Yeah.